Morning, all parents and students. I'm teacher Weilun here. I'm the academic director here at MindStretcher. And together with me here, we have teacher Sara. So teacher Sara is our upper secondary science curriculum lead here at MindStretcher. Later on, our co-founder of MindStretcher, Alvin, will also be joining in. He will be actually chiming in with a lot of his own perspectives because as you all would know, for today's session, is really focused on the Polytechnic pathway. And Alvin himself actually was a lecturer at Poly, and having been there, right, he actually has worked with many students in terms of the Polytechnic courses, programs, and also the pathways leading from there. So, actually, Alvin is already in, so I would hand over to Alvin. Yeah, Alvin, you're on mute. Yeah.
And before we start, right, I want to share a handout with you, which I think it is pertinent. So let me attach a handout. Then later we will go through it because actually last night I was speaking to a parent and student. It was exactly like what I had said to the parent and student in a 1 hour conversation. So I'm telling you the realities. Okay. So a couple of things which I also want to stress because some of the parents, I mean, obviously there are some parents they think that what we say can be quite unbelievable, especially when we talk about like schools like RI and Hwa Chong, they have weak students. This is the reality, okay? They have and it can be up to 30 over percent, okay? This is because when you're in the system, you actually see this. It happens every year, regardless of whether it is my generation. And at this point, I'd like to introduce to you Sarah as well. Okay, so there is a school for everybody. Sarah, for his PSLE, he actually qualified to go to RI, but he didn't go. Okay, he didn't go to RI, so he went to Bowen Secondary. So he went to Bowen Secondary and later on, when he went, so trust me, with his grades, he can easily beat a lot of RI students. This is a fact. Okay, then he went to NUS, he got a first class honors in biochemistry. So I think these are the important things which we all need to be aware of. There's a pathway for everybody. Ultimately, what you do, regardless of whether you choose the JC pathway or the poly pathway, you still need to do your best in that respective institution. Very, very important. Okay, so let me share this document with all of you. Just give me a while. Then we will share it on screen. And feel free to share with all your friends. Okay, sorry, let me attach this.
Yeah,
And
so while Alvin is attaching the document, so for
yes,
everybody here, to keep the session interactive, anytime you have questions, feel free to also just type
yeah.
that in the chat, and we'll be happy to take it live from there as well.
Thank you
Yeah.
very
Okay.
much. So shoot whatever questions you have. No question is ever too silly, and this is a critical time for you to be knowing these things. Okay. So let me put the handout here.
Oh, so E has already attached.
Okay, Shirley
Ah,
has
yeah,
a
yeah,
question. Thank you
yeah,
very much. So
yeah.
everybody, please save this and share it with everybody. So let me share my screen right now. So at least we can go through certain fundamental processes because everything I say here, it's the real situation. And it is, I was a poly lecturer before I joined MindStretcher. I was a poly lecturer 2004 to 2007. So I was there for 4 years. So right now, and many of the poly lecturers, the heads, the deans, they're all MindStretcher students. And they always seek me for advice, okay? And they invite me to go for talks, whatever, at the poly and so forth. So the system has not changed. The exams and courses may have evolved a little bit, but in essence, the system is still the same, okay? This is the reality. And you see that what I tell you is all, what we are going to tell you is all general principles, which are absolutely the reality, okay? Okay, so let me, hold on, let me open, sorry about that. Let me open my screen so that I can share. Okay. Okay, you can, let me see, can you see my screen? Okay, everybody can see the screen here, right? Cool? Can, right?
Yeah, can see.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Thank you very much. So let's go through a couple of points. Yeah, let's go through a couple of points. So I'm looking at the chat groups. In case you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, let me enlarge this further. Let me make it a little bit large. Why consider the Polytechnic route? Because the reality is that some of you have very good grades. Okay, so some of you were contemplating, in fact, some of you were contemplating going to a competitive JC, this JC, that JC. Then after last night, some of you actually considered the poly route, which is entirely viable. So why consider the polytechnic route? The key message is that poly is not a second choice now. During my time, which was I was in university, I was in NTU, I was in NTU in the years 1992 to 1995. So it's like it was a long time ago. So it's like 30 over years ago. It's like 30 over years ago. During my time, definitely poly is second choice. Okay, 100%. And those poly students who make it into my class, I was doing accountancy at NTU, and during my time, it's not so easy to get into accountancy. For girls, for girls A levels. You need 3 A's minimum. No 3 A's for A levels, you can't get in. Okay, why? Because at the time NTU was only faculty offering, and it was a very competitive course. Simply because there were many prospects associated with finance. Okay, right now you got a lot more. You got SMU, you got NUS, so forth, so forth. Okay, so poly is not second choice now. It's just a different pathway. So I need everybody to remember that, because many people say, "Oh, I'm not going to poly because it's less prestigious." No, ultimately depends on what you do there. Practice-oriented, industry-aligned education. This will always be true. Okay, when you go to JC, it is very academic orientated. Yeah, this is true. Okay, whereas practice, strong focus on applied skills, real world projects. So suitable for students who learn best by doing, prefer coursework over heavy exams, are clear or semi-clear by interest. Okay, interest is something which we need to define over time. It's not exactly a fact deal. Increasingly recognized by local universities, overseas, and employers. So let me give you one example. Even when I was teaching, okay, you know the most prestigious. Okay, let me ask you a general question. Do you know which is the most prestigious university in Australia? Give which is the most prestigious university in Australia? Anybody? Just guess. The most prestigious university in Australia is Melbourne University. Second, followed by second followed by Sydney U University. Times have changed, but when I was a student, okay, or when I was in the early years of my education, even if Singapore now times have changed, because now Singapore look for doctors all over the world. But during those times, they will only recognize the medical degree if so you study from Australia. I'm not going to take you in unless you come from either of these two universities, okay? Melbourne University or Sydney University. So the times have changed. So I tell you, even when I was a lecturer, and this is the reality, if you're a poly student, many of my not many, a number of my poly students, those who are more well off, once you get your poly diploma and you're not even like top, you're just like average, okay? Melbourne University actually recognizes your degree, and you actually bypass year one. Okay, it depends on the university. Some universities you can bypass year one, some universities you know, but the reality is that so a number of my poly students went to Melbourne University after they finished their poly diploma. So this was like this was like 20 years ago. So already Melbourne University was recognizing this, not to mention now. Right now it is quite common. So and local universities, as Weilun shared yesterday, right? Quite a number of poly students are now in uni because it is a pathway opened by the government. That's why we have more universities. Back when I was studying, only two universities, NTU and NUS. Right, those were in the 1990s. But the minute you have more universities, more pathways open. So this is a conscious decision, yeah? Okay, so key message, poly is not second choice, so there's no shame in going to a poly, okay? So the takeaway is this: poly is not necessarily easier, poly is the different skill set. So I am going to explain this a little bit more. When it comes to academic rigor, definitely poly is easier, 100%. Okay, JC is a lot harder. A levels, JC is a lot harder. But what I'm trying to say is that it's not necessarily easier because you need to have different skill sets as well. As long as your attitude is great, we can improve. Okay, important, huh? So why I say this? Because a number of parents, right? A number of students tell me, oh, Mr. Kuek, I'm going to poly because more fun. Generally, it may be a little bit more fun, but only if you do your work well. Okay, if you don't do your work well, nothing is ever going to be fun. This is the reality. Overview of polytechnics in Singapore, 5 polytechnics. Now, these different polytechnics have different strengths. Okay, the first polytechnic in Singapore, who can tell me who the first polytechnic in Singapore is? Singapore Poly. Singapore Poly is still the biggest poly now. Singapore Poly started off as an engineering poly. So because of that, the faculty is pretty strong track record. Everything comes with a track record, right? Second poly was Ngee Poly. Now, Ngee Poly started out as a business poly. So if you want to do business finance, Ngee will probably be the top choice. And the business faculty of Ngee Finance and Ngee Finance, accounting, whatever, is actually more. The faculty alone is more than the other accounting faculties of all the other polys combined. The other faculties will also have some of these, but not as big as Ngee Poly. So I was a lecturer at the Ngee Poly accounting and finance department. They call it School of Accountancy and Business. The names have changed over the years, but that was effectively what it is. Okay. So Temasek Poly, if you want to do law and management, you want the option of becoming a lawyer next time. There's only one place you wish you had, which is available. You go for Temasek Poly, law and management. Yeah, then everything is dependent on your grade. So Nanyang Poly again. So all these things have different domains, different strengths. So you may want to examine all these options. If you don't know, you got my number, please SMS me, okay? Each poly has signature strengths, engineering, media, yes. So Nanyang Poly now very strong in media, right? Very strong in media, very strong in animation, and so forth. Republic, Temasek Poly also strong in tourism and all these things. So everybody of them have a different niche. But generally, they try to complement the industry in Singapore. Okay, so different learning cultures. But at the end of the day, I always tell students, the school or the poly, you may have a perceived culture, but ultimately the culture is within yourself. If you mix with people who don't study whatever the culture, you will assimilate that culture. So that's why sometimes I am a bit reluctant to say that, you know, this school, like maybe Bukit Panjang has a certain culture, ACS has a certain culture, Bedok Green has a certain culture. I think it's tough to say that, okay, because we are really generalizing. You don't believe me, you can ask any other student. How they feel really depends on their position in the school, how well they do in the school, who they mix with. So culture is you know, is a very big word, but it is tough to quantify that. So I'm just telling you that this is the perceived impression, okay? Very important, you choose the course first, then the poly second. Why? If you want to do for tourism, you're obviously very interested in tourism, you're very interested in criminology, then obviously you got to look at which course first, then you look at the poly first. So it is a little bit different from secondary school, where let's say after your PSLE, most of all of you will look at the school first. After that, see what courses is available for you, right? Same. So this is the reality. So choose the course first, poly second. Clear? Clear? Huh? Because I need to go through all these things now, because in your JE option, your 12 options, if you want a poly, you got to put out all these things, right? How polytechnic education works. Academic structure 3 years. Diploma awarded upon graduation. Now, I'm not too sure whether it's changed, but generally at the time, they introduced something to make it a little bit more competitive. It came about during my time at the Polytechnic. I will imagine it's still there. That means if you are top 10%, you get the diploma with merit. Okay? Sorry, you get I think there are 3 categories now. You get a diploma with distinction, diploma with merit, and just a basic diploma. Why? It is just like what you do in school. It's just like when it's just like Weilun, when Weilun went to Columbia University and Ivy League University as an MS scholar, he got summa cum laude. Summa cum laude is first class honors. Okay, just like when you heard Moses also summa cum laude is first class or honors. It is a term which is used by only in Singapore for SMU, because SMU followed the American system. So SMU, if you get first class honors, summa cum laude, second class honors, second class upper, magna cum laude, so forth. Okay, and when Sara went to NUS, okay, the terms have changed. Terms has changed. So, and I tell you why the terms have changed, and this is also the reality. In the olden days, right, the Singapore system was a little bit more disadvantageous because of the stringent standards. So first class honors is only given to the top 5%. You're not top 5%, you're not first class honors. But in most universities overseas, everywhere, top 10% is first class honors. So in the last 7-8 years, the Singapore actually said that in order to be more competitive and to more give deserving students and not penalize them, because we have Singapore right now, first class honors, summa cum laude, or the new name for first class honors, degree with highest distinction. Okay, so you graduate with highest distinction, that's first class honors. You graduate with distinction, that is second upper. Okay, Sarah, during a time when you got your first class honors at NUS, was it still called first class honors?
My time is the new system,
New
so they
system.
changed it to highest distinction already.
Okay,
Yeah.
highest distinction. Oh, looks like you're very young. Shucks. Okay. Yes, so you belong to that era. So clear? So poly is like that also. Why do they want this system? I think it's to motivate students. For sure, right? So if I tell you you're on the radar for diploma with distinction, wow, now I'm more motivated. If everybody has the same diploma, there's no differentiation. Okay, so I think this is a step in the right direction. So diploma, and why is this important? Very simple. Those with highest GPA, most chances of getting the university, most chances of getting the course you want. So I want to, at this point in time, like I tell everybody, now this is important. I tell you the facts, the reality of the situation. JC students, as a cohort, definitely has a higher chance of entering uni. Okay, as a cohort, poly students, the percentage is definitely less than JC, but that is the where people are mistaken. It's easy to enter the university unless you do really badly for A levels or for poly. The only problem is whether you get into the course you want. Okay, so the reality is that true, many JC students can enter the poly, but most of them will not be able to get the course they want because their grades are not good enough. Okay, so I want everybody to be clear here. At the end of the day, you still need a decent set of grades. The only time when you don't need a decent set of grades is when you could do something exceptional. Like I was sharing with you, you build products, you are involved in entrepreneurship, you do this, you do that, and so forth. And I say that why this is important. You know, yesterday I gave you the example of what Moses did. Moses, one of the top students in RI by a mile. Okay, so it's pretty consistent. But you see, to get into water, not so easy. The whole of Singapore in its cohort, only two, one from RI and another one from that particular year from, I believe, if I remember correctly, from NJC. RI, all the students who applied all didn't get it. Okay, but how was he different? He did a couple of things which I told him you have to do. What did he do? He took part in business plan contest. He won the NUS business plan contest. He came up with a product which I thought was pretty dumb. Okay, juice machine. I said that we have had juice machines for the longest time. So what makes your idiotic juice machines any idea worth considering? But I said, no, my juice machine is different. So he presented the idea, went to the panel, and he actually won it. First feather in his cap. Second feather in his cap, entrepreneurship. He represented Singapore because I was a coach. I was a coach for the RI Singapore team. Okay, I was coach for the RI Singapore team. And the reason why I ended up as coach because Moses and Tu Xuan, who is his wife now, were in the team. So I decided that I will help the team. Okay, so I helped the team and we actually won the World Championship, Social Entrepreneurship. Now, these were two big things. Social Entrepreneurship at World Championship level. The first and last time Singapore ever won it. Okay, that was in 2011. Singapore has never ever won it anymore. Okay, besides modern smash. So it's not so easy to. Why? I tell you very simple. Because in order to guide these people, you need people who have done it. And I am an entrepreneur. So if you have a normal teacher, it's very difficult. Okay, because it's all academic. You need to have done it before. So these two things, I told Moses, the teachers said that you cannot get in the water. I said, if you apply to water, you definitely get it because you're different from all the rest. And true enough, he was the only one who got water. Okay, so very important. So again, this is what I said. So you have to build something. So your grades are important. If your grades are, you still need a decent set of grades, whatever, it can't be too bad. If it's not top notch, make sure you build something. Then it becomes very instructive. Process are open for you. Okay, find diploma awarded modular system. What is modular systems? Semesters. Sarah, during your time right now, do you also have modular system? You have, right?
Yeah, I had modular systems.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have modular system, and I tell you why this is good. It changed in my last year in a local university. So which is good. So you must understand the modular system. So what happens if you fail, you can retake it again. But during my time, if you fail and you sit, okay, let me give you an example. My time, everybody took 8 subjects a year, the whole year. Okay, so at the end of the year, you take the exam. Even if you get 7 A's for all your subjects and you fail one, and if you resit for that paper and you still fail again, do you know what happens? You retake the whole year, which is a really tragic system. So every year I see some of my friends being retained, and some of my people class are from older years. So this is the reality. So it was not ideal. But during my last year at NTU, they changed. Everything became the semester system, which is better. Okay, so the semester system is something which is practiced in all the polytechnics right now and all the local universities. Okay, so that means if you fail, no problem. You just take it again next term or try to earn more credits. Now, how is poly system addressed? Projects, presentations, group quizzes, and tests. So let me tell you the secret in poly. This applies to everybody who listens. Everybody who listens to me, they do very well in poly. Okay, because I came from the system as well. Okay, the poly system is like that. You want to do well, 2 things must happen. Make sure you do all your tutorials. I repeat, all your tutorials you have got to do. Why? Because other than the hands-on experiment, most of the things which you're going to test it is going to be from your tutorials. People who do the tutorials, know them inside out, 100% will do well. First secret. Second secret, make sure you do the last 5 years exam papers. Okay? Confirm. You do this too? Confirm. How do you get exam papers? Everything is in the library. It can be electronic copy as well. You do this too? Confirm you don't do. Confirm you do well. You don't do? Confirm you don't do well. Unless you're super smart. Okay? So this is why I said that in a sense, poly is a little bit easier compared to academic region. And poly, yeah, so forth. Fine. So projects, presentations, group work, quizzes, tests, exams, not only exams. So this is general what happens for every single subject in the poly. Yeah. Teaching style, lecture, tutorials plus labs. Labs is if you're a technical subject, if you're engineering, if you are media, you may have all these labs. And another important factor in poly is what they call project-based learning. They give you a project, you go into a group, there are different objectives in the projects, and there you have it. Teamwork is unavoidable. Okay. Now, what happens if you get bad team members? I always tell students, what happens if you get bad team members? You don't have a choice. You got to make up for your bad team member. If you cannot say that it's not fair. My team member is weak. I don't care if I help him, then it's not fair. But it's your grade, Okay, so in real life, this is what happens. You always have some free riders. If you can choose your own team members, great. But not all the time you can choose. I repeat. Sometimes you can choose. Sometimes it is random allocation. Sometimes they go by class list. Okay, but very seldom they go by class list, because if you go by class list, it means that for every single project you have the same team members, right? So it depends on how the system works. So you need to teamwork is available. Reality check, consistency matters number one, last minute mugging. And this is what I'm trying to tell you. You look at number 4. Number 4 is important. Why is different from JC? JC, let me give you a simple example. If right now in year 1 you don't study so hard, you struggle to study, but if you're a good student, year 2 you can still make it because your exam is at the end of year 2, right? Poly, this is how it goes. So let me give you one simple example. It's just the same like the universities now. Let me give you one simple example. Let's say 4. Let me give you a simple example. I believe if the system has not changed, 80 marks and above, it is GPA of 4. Okay, 60 to 70 to 60 is a GPA of 3.6. I'm just giving an example. Okay, let's make it simple. Let's say my name is Alvin. I'm a year 1 poly student. Okay, year 1 I play a lot. I thought poly is chill. I play a lot, so I don't study so hard. So I get a passing grade only. So out of a GPA of 4, my GPA is 2.0. I get 50%. Clear? 50%, so 2.0. 2.0. Well, then I wake up already. Oh, shucks. Now my grades are passing mark. I used to be good student. Now only barely pass. So year 2, I wake up a little bit. I study harder. Year 2, now I get I get an average grade. I'm just giving you a hypothetical example. I get 75% for all my subjects, which is pretty good. So my GPA, I'm just giving you example, my GPA becomes 3.6, 3.3. I'm just giving you example 3. Just make it easier. 3. GPA of 3. So from 2, I get a GPA of 3. Okay? Now, because I made improvement last year in poly, I go all out. I work damn hard because my last year in poly, I go all out, I chunk, I work very hard. Then I get a perfect score. I perfect of GPA of 4. So listen, first year, I get GPA of 2. Second year, I get GPA of 3. Third year, I get a perfect score. Everything A. In fact, everything 100%. 4.0. What is my graduating GPA? What is my graduating GPA? Your GPA is cumulative. Your GPA is the average. So that means even if you get perfect score 4.0 and you kill everybody in the poly, if I combine your GPA 2 plus 3 plus 4 divide by 3, what is your GPA? 3. 3, you can still get to university, but you can forget about entering to any of the competitive courses, 100%. Okay, if you're a poly student, you really want to have a good chance of entering into the course you want. Minimum for me, if you really want that place to have your high chance. I say high chance doesn't mean you get it. Why? Because interviews may be involved. You understand? That's why I said the ability to speak is important. Okay, ability to say is important. Interviews are involved for those very competitive courses. So even during my time when I was a lecturer, because remember I told you that for A-level girls, why girls 3As, boys you don't need 3As, because a lot of girls want to enter accountancy. Okay, a lot. So that's the reason why girls you need 3As. So if you're a poly student wanting to get an accountancy, you minimum when time was lecturer, you need 3.9 minimum to qualify for the interview. Okay, but obviously times have changed. Last time was less places, now more places. So in general, you want to have a very, very good chance of getting in the course you want. I think you want to be safe 3.9. I'm just telling you the reality. 3.8 is still okay. 3.8 you still get this, but now you're competing against others lah. But 3.9 is a pretty good score. You get the diploma with distinction and so forth. Okay, it goes to perfect GPA system. Clear? So this is the reality. So every semester counts. So in a poly, you got 6 semesters. 1 year, 2 semesters. So in other words, every semester count. So every semester is important because anytime you don't do well, you got to make up a it for the next semester. Is everybody clear on this? And two of the semesters combined, because right now they got a lot of hands practical, is your actual work experience. It can be 6 months. It can be 1 whole semester. The beauty about work attachment is that if you do well, everything becomes a 4.0. Do you understand? Because 24, it can be equivalent to 6 subjects. So make sure this is where your writing skills, your interaction skills, your ability to work with people also comes into play, because the company will be grading you. Yeah? So all these things you need to know. Important misconception to correct: poly is exam-free and can have more fun. It's not as stressful as JC for sure. 100% A-level is a lot more stressful. This is a fact. Whichever JC you go to, poly is continuous performance. It doesn't apply to the JC. JC at the end of the day is just your A-level. So if I play a fool and I'm still very smart, I can still do well. But I'm not so smart, I'm also dead. Okay? Yeah? So it is gradual. So this is like the university admission system. Okay? And the current system in some of the schools, not all the schools. Entry pathways to the Polytechnic. What is relevant to you is your JAE. EAE, I won't talk about it. DSA like approach for poly is like early admission exercise. EAE stands for early admission exercise. That's DSA for a thing. And why I say the practical component, because right now if you're from SST, Singapore School of Science and Technology, why is it different? People have this idea that SST is a poor cousin of NUSI. It's not true. Different aspect. NUSI very academic, SST very hands-on. And that's why they got the direct DSA route to poly if they want. Okay. So EAE, early admission exercise. So what is relevant for you right now is only your JE. Key differences: JE, academic results; EAE, it's just like your DSA, aptitude, interest, portfolio, interview. Everybody clear? Clear? So generally for your poly, generally there won't be interview at this level. Okay, but to university, yes, depends on the course you choose. Competitive faculties will always have interviews generally because they want to see about if you're very good in the studies, you cannot speak, you're too shy, may not be the best consideration as well. Okay, so I'm telling you the reality. That's why I say all of us need to be able to speak, all of us need to be able to be confident in our speaking. Strong advice for students, this is not relevant for you, but the reason why I'm showing you this is that if you have parents, if your parents here, if you've got younger kids who are considering the poly option, friends, relatives, please make sure they know all these things. Anyway, going forward, I will also be giving talks on early admission exercise, DSA for poly students, so forth, and JC students, not just for PSLE students. Okay, so please make sure you're in our loop so that we can share with you all of this. So I won't go to EAE because it's not relevant for you right now at this point in time, okay? Choosing the right diploma course, this is a very important thing. Number one, what subjects do I? Okay, now this is this is not exact science lah. Okay, this is not exact science, and this is this is only my opinion, not a fact, and my opinion would differ depending on whether you're a JC student or poly student. In JC student, my frank opinion is this: I can be very interested in doing one subject, but I can't score in it. I may not like the other subject, but I can easily score it. From a practical perspective, if I were the student in JC, very simple. I will just take the subject I can score easily. I'm a practical person. I like the subject, but I can't score, I will not take it. Because why? At the end of the day, your university, your JC, your university admission scores would determine your place in the university, your faculty you are going to. Because the higher the grade, the more chances. This is the reality. Okay. Whereas poly is a little bit different. Why I say it's a little bit different. Why do you need to enjoy what you're doing? Because what you do in poly generally will link to what the course you're applying in university. Do you all agree? Let's say you're doing an engineering course in poly. I think it's very, very rare that you are going to swap to, let's say, a humanities course in university. Do you agree? The option may be available for you, but generally many of you are not. It can happen, but it's not going to be very regular. So for poly, I will always recommend do something which you enjoy doing, but it must be practical. I repeat that it must be practical. No point doing a course which cannot find you jobs. Okay, we also need, that's why whatever students, remember I told you in the last 2 days about these Crescent girls, 6A1, can go to JC, don't want to go to JC, wants to go poly, want to do logistics course at poly. Logistics course at poly cutoff is 21, you know. For poly students is 21. She is a 6A1 student. 6A1, raw score of 6. Okay, if you last time we got 6 subjects compulsory, right now it's cut down to 5, right? So yeah, it's a 5 to go on. So I said that, why are you doing this course? Because she was clueless and her father is not so educated. So I said, no, you and your father come and see me. I said that given your grades, I look at your English, I know you're a good speaker, only one option for you. You go to law and management. That's what I told her. Why do you want to go to logistics? Do I need to have a logistics diploma if I want to work in Shopee? If I want to work in Lazada, I don't need to. Okay? So we need, and there's a reason why the cutoff point is so high. Right? That means it's a course which nobody wants. So we need to be practical. So I always say, what I enjoy doing, yes, but we need to be practical. We need to be aware of the prospects. If you're not too sure, ask me. You all have my phone number, right? Very simple, because I am from the industry. I'm not just your normal teacher. A normal teacher, not impossible to give you all this advice. But because I was in the industry and I recruit people, I hire people. Even right now, I'm my stretcher. I hire people. Okay, so I interview them and so forth. So I think it's important. Okay, so if not too sure, better ask me. Yeah. So do I prefer designing, coding, presenting, analyzing, helping people, whatever? Think about it. What careers might this is a very important point. What careers might this diploma? So we need to look at it from 2 aspects. Number one, we try to get a diploma, and in case, I'm just giving you an example, in case you can't get into university, at least the diploma would also give you a job. I think we gotta come from this aspect. Clear? In case you cannot get into university, at least this diploma will give you a job. Now, what happens if you do well, then you can go to university. So all these things are important. Course clusters, engineering and technology, IT and data, business accountancy, these are all the general course clusters. Okay? My stretching takeaway here, wrong course choice hurts more than choosing JC or Poly. So this is what I said first. Firstly, what did I say? Choose the course first, then the Poly. It cannot be the other way around. Okay? It cannot be the other way around. That's the wrong sequence of doing things. Polytechnic versus junior student, neutral view. Expect Polytechnic 3 years, JC 2 years, style, applied project based, junior college academic exam based. This is generally true. Assessment continuous, semestral based, junior college high stakes exam, one exam, A levels, you make it or you break it. Full stop. If I don't do well in Poly for semester 1, I can still try to do well for semester 2. I can still run to semester 3. Then my grades become higher. A levels, one exam, do well or you don't. Finish. So this, when they use the word high stakes exam, this is the real high stakes exam, right? Not your PSLE. This now is correctly used, high stakes exam. Best for clear interest, academic all-rounders, uni route GPS-based A-level rank points. Everybody clear? Neither is superior, very important. It's not superior right now. Fit matters more than prestige. I always tell students, and this is very important. Like I'm very frank with you. My first ever Mind Stretcher student, I'm just telling you the reality. My first ever Mind Stretcher student, when I first started teaching Mind Stretcher at 2007, was this P2 girl. Yes, I first started teaching at P2 because that was the only class I had at the time. There was this girl in the class called Crystal Lua. Crystal Lua is a smart girl, okay? So it was so at that time that was the year my stretcher started in 2002, but at that time we were not big yet, so we only had one center. And my first student, and after Poly, I decided I taught this student part-time during my Poly days, okay? So there were a few students in my class, primary 2, this student called Crystal Lua, but for me, Crystal Lua is a super smart girl. So true enough, she got into GP at the end of primary 3, then she went to Raffles Girls Primary School. Raffles Primary School, she was one of the top GP students there. Top 2 or top 3. PSLE came out 277, 278. Went to RGS because I was teaching them at the time informally, chess team, RGS team, whatever. So she went to RGS, did well for Sec 1 and Sec 2, and that's where the problem arises. Sec 3, Sec 4, she started having problems. Problems with what? So she was still a good speaker. She was RGS prefect. She was in the debate team. But when it comes Sec 3, just like many other IP students, she started having problems with science and maths. Okay, this is a fact. Huh? That's why I said, maybe because primary school you still do well, but secondary school, in some of these schools, especially if your foundation is not so good or you lose your interest, you got a problem. So she started not doing so well. At the end of the day, she came to see me. Mr. Kuek, I want to consider transferring to ACSI. I said ACSI is a perfect fit for you because you're going to get IB diploma. And I told her, and I asked her, why do you want to go to ACSI? He said that go to ACSI because I think that IB diploma is easier. When I look at the slide, it's true. This is the reality. And I said the only subject which is more difficult is English, but English is super good. So I said, go. They say that, but many of my relatives, many of my friends tell me that, no, ACSI is less prestigious than RI. I say, I don't care. At the end of the day, you can go to RI, but your grades suck. It's not going to help you. You can go to Jurong Junior College, but my grades get 3 A's, 2 A's, rather than you getting 3 C's at RI. This is the reality, huh? She agreed. So everybody said less prestigious. I said that ignore these people, because ultimately the only thing which counts is your grades. Guess what happened to her at ACSI? She got a perfect score, 45. She became a PSAC scholar, and Weilun, she entered Columbia. She just graduated, okay, as a PSC scholar. But this is the reality I'm trying to tell you. So ACSI viewed as less prestigious. All right, this is the wrong mindset. You go to something which suits you well, something which is more practical, something which should enable you to be better. Very, very important. That's why we keep emphasizing, forget about the name of the school. Which school suits you best? And this is reality. If you are staying, let me give you a simple example. If you are staying in the West, let's say you want to go to JC, Temasek JC, Victoria JC. Victoria JC is just next door. 5 minutes, 10 minutes walk, 15 minutes by bus, maybe. Then, but you don't want. You want to go to, maybe, I'm just giving you an example. You want to go to school like like Hwa Chong. There's no right or wrong, but let's say from there to travel to Hwa Chong, you're going to take 1 hour, 15 minutes, to and fro, 2.5 hours. Is it worth the time? I'll tell you the answer is no. Is Hwa Chong going to make you become the good student that you think everybody is? No, because you don't see the weak students. Okay? Okay, so clear. So I want to everybody. So the no fit is superior. Fit matters more than prestige, and this is really true at this point in time. Like yesterday, I was telling one student, you know, the comparison. This student and mother, he's been a my special student for like 8 years. Okay, so he was considering going between RI and Nanyang JC. But at the end of the day, I told him my frank opinion. Forget about the prestige, because my frank opinion is that right now, I think it's best for you to go to Nanyang JC. And they agree after I reason out with them. There's no right or wrong, but if you go just on prestige, because we assume that everybody has good grades, you're wrong. Just because a JC has a lower cutoff point, doesn't mean that all students there are good. This is the point which everybody needs to understand. Okay? Yeah. So Polytechnic to university pathways, local universities, 5, and going forward, there's going to be one more. The LaSalle School of the Arts is going to become a university. Okay, competitive courses require high GPA. Everything is true one. High GPA, relevant diploma, strong portfolio. And I tell you the secret behind Poly. That's why I said being good in studies is important. Once you are good in your studies, you're on the radar for the Poly. Then they'll try to give you the portfolio. For instance, when I was a Poly lecturer, when I was in charge of a particular club, then one day, and this is the thing which I learned, you see, one day I got summoned by my dean. He said, Alvin, I want you to give leadership position to this student. I said, I don't know this student, not in the club. I said, why? He said, this student is the top scorer right now in the whole Poly, perfect 4.0. But this student cannot speak. Then the dean told me, then you make him speak. Give him the position, then we train him. Do you understand? So this is generally how it works. Okay, clear? So that is why your portfolio matters. That's why your academic, number one, you need to have your grades lah. Let us be under no illusions. That's why I say you need to work hard from Poly from day one. Then you can become, if you're a good student at secondary school, you work hard at Poly, I'm quite sure you have a good chance of becoming a really good Poly student. Why does it matter? It matters. It increases your chance of portfolio. Number two, it now makes it easier to enter the university course for the choice you want. Enter into courses is not too difficult. The critical part is, can you enter the course you want? And if it's a competitive course, that's where the trouble arises. That's why grades mean everything. That's why you see the first thing I put is your high GPA. If your high GPA is high enough, and it's not even a course which is relevant, you can still enter. Okay, that's why I said number one is see your high GPA, and number two, relevant and strong portfolio. Not all diplomas met equally to all degrees. This is true. Okay, overseas universities, UK pathways are available. Credit exemptions possible. Just like anything, JC or Poly, uni is entirely possible. The discipline is key. Common pitfalls in Polytechnic. I'm going through these general things. Then you can ask me any questions. Well, poor time management. Yes. Why? Don't do tutorials. Have too much fun. Too much gaming. Common problems across all. Okay. Over reliance on group mates. At the end of the day, you can't. They may a little group work, but you take the exam will still form the bulk of your marks. Do you understand? Coursework 20-30%. You still need group mates. You cannot depend on roommates. Ultimately, you got to do it yourself. Ignoring GPA until year 2 or year 3. This is what I'm trying to say. Now you're in deep trouble, right? Right? Even Moses, one of the top students in RI, he had a problem when he Sec 2 because at the time he was playing too much computer games until he got caught by me. Now you see what happened? In a physics exam, and it was an easy physics exam for me, SI unit. You know, for the exam, this was the 10%. This was 10% of his entire physics paper. And I said that this paper, you must get full marks. You know how many marks he got? 3. Now I say you're in deep shit. This 10%, you 3%, you fail. Right now, in order to get your perfect GPA, all your other subjects, you got to make up for this already. All your 90%, you got to make up for this. So this is the reality. Every time you don't do well, you got to make up for it. Okay? And this is important. Ignoring GPA in year 2 and no 3. Year 1, you start, you do well from now, you do. So let me ask Sara and Weilun, because both of them got first class honors in the university. Okay. So when you were doing your university, because it's the same system, okay, same system for poly. So my question is this: Weilun and Sarah, right? You got your first class. Was it because you were consistent in your work, or there were years when you had to make up for it?
Yeah. So to hop in, yes, I think it's quite similar in that because if you look at the poly system to the uni system, the thing about it is that it's not like just a final like typical exam just at the end of the year typically, right? Usually there will also be these kind of like things that contribute towards your GPA, be it in terms of in-class assignments. Even actually for university for me because I went overseas, right? One part of that is also there will be like class discussions, there will be some project work, and then there will be some tests along the way as well. So if you look at a system that's like that, right, with a kind of tied to a kind of GPA system, it's more predicated on consistency, right? So it's not something that you can really just slack off and at the end you just make up for it through one paper right at the end. But you do have to show certain level of consistency and discipline in the way you work through the whole program. And I think that's quite in line with how, like if you look at poly prepping you as for being future ready, for being work ready, that's what work is like also, right? So work is not like you have this final high stake assessment right at the end. It's always going to be something that is, a marathon, right? So there are always going to be these different milestones that you have to work through. And I think that was something that also helped me, right? So as you go through uni and similarly if you go through poly, is having that consistency lah, rather than more of a final burst kind of thing. Yeah, so that's the thing. And like what Alvin mentioned, I think that's also the difference from the JC system. So if you look at the JC system, it's indeed the case that, sometimes people come in, they kind of lag behind. And in fact, it could be the case that when they go into JC, the first part of J1, they're just failing. They don't really know what's going on. Then the key to whether they then clear the A levels is just whether they can catch up in J2 and then do well enough for the A level exams. So the kind of system and I think the kind of mindset is going to be a bit different also. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I also agree with Weilun, but I think consistency is key lah. But because Weilun went overseas to finish his uni, but for me in terms of NUS and NTU, I think that group work is lesser as compared to individual performance and assessment. So for me itself, it was more of a consistent individual performance and assessment that actually brings forth the grade in terms of the final year lah. And like what Weilun mentioned, right, the problem with GPA systems and CAP systems is that it carries over every year. So you have to actually be strategic about it and think which modules you take, which modules you can take, and what are the modules that you can score in order to actually improve your GPA along the way. Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason why I'm telling you all this is that it's also from my own experience. Okay, unlike Weilun and Sarah, I didn't get first class, and I tell you what happened. So I'm telling you my frank experience as well. Okay, I'm a good student. Technically, I should get first class, but I didn't. Tell you why. Because first year uni, I was involved in too many things. I was fighting for my CCA points. I was chasing girlfriends. Okay, normal. Okay, so I tell you what happens, and I didn't know the system until it was too late. Okay, so you see the system, I got to know too late that if you want to get first class honors, we took 24 subjects. Okay, first class honors was top 10, top 5%. Okay, so it's very clear. The top 20 or 30 students will get first class honors. There were 1,000 students in NTU accountancy because very competitive faculty. So I tell you what happened to me. First year, I was busy fighting for CCA points because as a foreigner, I needed to stay in a hostel and I needed CCA points in the hostel. So I was fighting for it. So first year, I got 2 A's. So I repeat now. First year, I got 2 A's. All my 8 subjects, I got 2 A's. Second year, I dropped down. I had many CCAs. Second year, I became more focused because first year was also difficult for me because I came from triple science background. Triple science background, the worst course you did was the worst course to choose was accountancy because everything was new to me. So first year, 2 years. Second year, I became a little bit more accustomed. I got 4 A's. Okay, so now listen. So first year, I got 2 A's out of 8. Second year, I got 4 A's out of 8. Third year, I now went full force already. Final year, I got 7 A's. Okay? 7 A's. So 2 A's, 5 A's, 7 A's. Total number of A's, I got 13. I missed first class by 1 A. Anybody who got 14 A's first class. Okay, but you see, what cost me, it was clear. Year 1 cost me. Do you agree? This is the reality. That's why I said we need to be consistent. Yeah, so that was how. So even though it was not fully GPA, but this was exactly how they counted. And I got to know too late that 14 A's is the requirement for first class because they go on trend. Anybody get 14 A's, Singapore's education is not so easy. Yeah? So it's not so not so easy to get A. But yeah, but that was how I miss it. I miss it because I only got my 2 A's. If I just get them 3 or 4 A's, I'll get my first class already. Okay, so I'm sharing you, this is the reality of the situation. So whether you go to Poly or JC, even JC, if you consider JC, you still need to be consistent. Because the reality is the A levels is tough. If you wait until next year, you're in deep shit. I tell you for sure, because it's tough. More so in Poly where it is semestral. Then you got a good GPA, you got buffer. You know how I say you got buffer? So in case another term you don't do well, you got a buffer. The buffer is very important. Okay? Yeah, clear? The buffer. So for instance, if you do well, you get 3.8, you get 4. Then if maybe another term you got an accident because something happened to you, you were stressed or something happened in your community or affected by family members, whatever, and your GPA drops out to that GPA which you had earlier would cover for it. Clear? So that's why the consistency is very, very important. Polytechnics skills, all polytechnic students develop self-discipline. It applies to everybody, not just poly students, okay? Communication, and this is what I said, you have to do it. Once you can speak well, you become a superstar, okay? Being able to speak. Team collaboration is a general skill. Work in a team is easy. Whether you can lead a team is a different skill. Professional writing, I think all of you would generally, for almost all courses, right? Business writing is probably a subject which all students must take. Okay, even if it's not compulsory, I think you should learn to take it, right? Interview, confidence, portfolio building. Okay, fine. Skills plus attitude. So you must all understand this, especially once you're in a job. So this is the reality, yeah. In Singapore, especially, right? Does the university you go to make a difference? Yes, it does. Does the course you go to make a difference? Yes, it does. Does your grades matter? Absolutely it does. Clear? So grades do matter. But once you are in that job itself, once you're already in, now your skills plus attitude will matter a lot more. Okay? Okay? This will always be true. That's why it's important to be able to differentiate yourself. Is Polytechnic right for you? A couple of things you need to consider. Students should ask themselves, do I enjoy applied learning? Can I manage long-term projects? Something you can learn over with time. Am I comfortable speaking up? You have to. Once, and more so when you get opportunity to speak up in Poly, just go and speak. Speak. Volunteer. The more you do it, the better you become. Am I prepared to be consistent for 3 years? You have to be, whatever you do, okay? So Polytechnic versus JC decision matrix. This is not exact science. This is just something for you to consider. Which column has more will probably be the thing. But this is, I said, a very general thing. Yeah, just okay. So key takeaways: Polytechnic is a viable, respected pathway. Course choice matters more than poly name. So that's why I said, okay, just a lot of parents are asking me, should I go to Poly or Temasek? It depends on what course you want to choose. Okay, it really depends on what course you want to choose. EA is a powerful, which is not relevant to you. Success requires maturity, consider ownership. There is no single best route, only the right fit. University pathway is important. Cumulative, the word is cumulative. What cumulative just means average. It accumulates over time. Cumulative just means the average GPA. Just like, for instance, if I give you it's just a simple mathematics, right? If I get a score of 100, 50, and 75, what is my average score for all 3 subjects? 75%, correct? 100, 75, 50, midpoint is 75. If I get 90, 90, 90, 90 for all 4 subjects, my average score is 90%. GPA works exactly the same way. It just average GPA across the semester. So cumulative just means it's an average. Over 2 semesters, over 3 semesters, that will be your final GPA. Local universities, as I mentioned, one more, LaSalle coming up. Key factors considered: diploma relevance, GPA consistency, portfolio interviews, competition level, of course. Not all diplomas made equally. Okay, what you should do as a parent student, parents can ask what kind of learning. But at this point in time, I always think that the child, the student must be more actively involved because right now it's your future. Okay? That's why you realize that when I speak to parents, I always ask parents, number one, what is the parent's choice? Number two, what is the student's choice? Once I combine both and I think the student's choice is reasonable, then I always recommend the student's choice would come first because ultimately he's the one studying in that school. Okay, clear? As long as his reasoning is reasonable. Avoid asking, is this easier? Which would sound safer? These are practical questions. There's no harm in asking these questions. Okay, but they should not be the only considerations, because especially you take the poly route, because what you do will generally affect what you do as a career and the course you can apply to in university. Okay, common myths versus reality. Poly is easier. Poly is easier academic rigor, but there are also aspects which you need to be consistent. Okay, no exams in poly, exams plus projects. You still have exams. Can slack after O levels? No, you can't. GPA starts from down one. I want to emphasize this. GPA starts from day one. Okay, once you have this mindset, all top students have this mindset in poly, 100%. You see, I'm different from the other poly lecturers because I tell them the reality. So even if I'm teaching accounting, teaching finance, teaching data management, straight away I'll tell them, okay, today's first lesson, I want to tell you the realities of the situation. What you have to do, give me 10 minutes. Because I want to make sure that everybody knows. Because many of them don't know because the poly doesn't tell them. Then suddenly they get a shock. That's why we're having these seminars. Okay, so that you know from day one. Uni is impossible, from poly is possible but competitive. Okay, so I think this is this will give you a broad idea of whatever things. So please feel free to share this with your friends and so forth. Okay, right now we take questions. Okay, we take questions. Ask us any questions you want. Then we will try to give you the answers to the best of our ability. We're not saying that we're always right, but generally we can help you make an informed decision. Okay, cool? Yes. Any questions? You can raise your hands, you can speak in public. I think this is a chance for you to learn to get the confidence to speak. Okay? Cool? Yes. Any questions? Like recently we had the National Youth Orator Championship. I was pleasantly surprised. A number of the poly students, fantastic speakers. I was very pleased. You should see the clips which we will share with you all in time to come. Very good. And they came from all races, Indians, Chinese, Malays. Quite a number of very good Malay speakers. I was most pleasantly surprised from Temasek Poly because that one had a speaking club. That's why I say the ability to speak does matter. Then opens up opportunities. Okay? Yes. Any questions? Sarah and Weilun, if you see questions, you can just let us know as well, okay? Okay. Okay, I am being very candid with you. Okay, I'm being very candid with you. I'm just telling you the realities of the situation. Are there good strengths of human resources with psychology? Okay, now I would just want to tell you the practical realities because many people do psychology as a degree. Okay, but I want to think about it. And the reason why I say this because I see resumes. Okay, so you think about it. I'm just talking about psychology as a degree, not human resources yet. Psychology as a degree, what jobs can you enter? We need to be practical. What jobs can you enter? Maybe school counselors, maybe. But how many school counselors do they need? Very limited. And I tell you why. Every time I always tell students, yes, it may be something you like, but we need to be practical. So I tell you the reality. So I'm not going to miss my words here. I'm going to tell you, if you do psychology, the job opportunities are going to be limited. Okay, I know I get graduates from psychology at different universities applying to be customer service officers at my stretcher. I'm telling you, this is the truth because cannot find job. Okay, so are there good prospects for human? Everything depends on your grade. Okay, so once you get your grade, so I'm very frank with you also. When you talk about cost of human resources, there is a place for everybody, but you know the job market here in Singapore is very, very competitive. So I will always say the number one factor is your grades. Whatever you say, Okay. So are there good prospects? Everything is relative. Good prospects depending on what type of student you are in that faculty. If you're top few students, prospects become much easier. Fact. Okay. So I cannot tell you for sure. Next question. I'm just going across the questions. Yeah, keep the questions coming. And Weilun and Sara, you can just add in, okay, along the way. Hold on. I am just looking at various things. Okay, and this is important. And thank you, Weilun, for answering the question, because Weilun was an MAS scholar. Okay, Weilun was an MAS scholar, overseas scholar at Columbia, Ivy League, and Cambridge University. Okay, so what are the chances of winning a scholarship for UK universities if you... Okay, everything depends on a couple of things, but the good thing about right now, okay, regardless of whether you win a scholarship or not, a few things happen. Okay, so I tell you, you should not just look at the UK universities, you should look at other universities because times have changed. Okay, UK universities, Cambridge is prestigious because it's the oldest university in the world. But does it mean that it's strongest? But because the name is easy to find job, whatever course you study, this is the practical reality. But the reality is also this: is it easier to get a first class honours in Cambridge, Oxford, compared to getting a first class honours in law in NUS or SMU? My frank opinion is SMU and NUS is a lot harder. Why I say this? Because I got students in all these places. Whether it's Cambridge University, they're all, because they were all my students once. And I know that standard. Okay. Generally, it is like that. I'm not saying they're no good, except that I think you should also explore the American universities or other universities. American universities also have such thing called your bursary. So you can actually go there on a free scholarship, free. But this is a function of your family income. Okay, it's called a bursary because it's based on family income. So I would say that chances, everything is relative. Why I say relative? It depends on what your profile is compared to other students. So I may say, wow, you're very good now. But if I look at another student, in trouble. I give you one simple example. When I first started helping students from DSA, I helped many students from DSA. Okay. Initially, when I first started helping those earlier years, right? Wow, grade 8 for piano, grade 8 for violin, very good. Almost confirm get your DSA music place, because your DSA music place basic requirement is only grade 5. Right now, I look at the situation again, your grade 8 will not be enough. You know why? Because there are other students with two grade 8 piano and violin. Now you just got violin, you can lose out to the other student. Even though on its own, fantastic, but if you compare to another student, it is relative. I give you another example, because this is the reality. A couple of years ago, I had a student from Taonan, okay? Not very good in the studies, but very good in playing the piano. So she got a place as expected. She performs piano concerts and everything, okay? As expected, she got, not Taonan, St. Hilda. So this girl from St. Hilda. So she got the place RGS with music. So I asked her this question. How many places did RGS give for music? She said 2. I said, who was the other girl? She said, the other girl is my main competitor from primary 1. In every piano contest, she and I are either number 1 and number 2. So this is the reality. Who are you up against? So if you happen to be against these 2 students, even though you may be very good in piano, but you're not number 1, number 2, and they only give 2 places, you're out. Okay? So we cannot say that what are chances. Everything depends, and what Weilun says is absolutely correct. Everything depends on your portfolio. Okay? 3.9 is a strong score, puts you in a good academic grammar, but not a scholarship, also look beyond academics, factor in your profile, CCA leadership. This will always be true. Okay? And it also depends on the course you take. The course you take does matter. Now, many poly students, they go to universities like Imperial College, from Poly, Singapore Poly, Temasek Poly, whatever, and they easily get the first class honours. I'm telling you facts. For engineering. So it depends on the course you choose, because they're very strong in the practical aspect. So many of them, even when they go to local universities, many engineering students get first class honours. It can be NTU, it can be a prestigious UK university like Imperial College. You still get the first class honours. So everything depends. But scholarship is different category, scholarship is a lot more competitive. Getting a place in a university is easier than getting a scholarship in that university. So I think we need to differentiate that. Okay. So we can't tell you for sure, the chances for sure. Everything is relative. You may think that 3.9 is good. Yes, I think it's good score. But if your competitors are those getting 4.0, then you lose out already. I'm telling you the practical reality. So everything. But if you're 3.9 and all your competitors are getting 3.8, then you have a good chance. That's why I said you cannot control. Everything depends on who you're competing against. So we cannot tell you whether winning a scholarship, if you score 3.9, will get you a scholarship or not, because scholarship for poly level are very competitive. Okay, it can be done, but you need to have other things besides your academic. I can tell you absolutely for sure. That's what Moses said about building your portfolio, right? Okay, are there good prospects in Chinese and media? Okay, you see, in job market, are there good prospects in Chinese media and communications from NP and also chemical and pharmaceutical technology from NP? Okay, I'll just like to ask Weilun, just looking at this alone, we're not going to specific, just looking at this alone, which do you think will give you more opportunities? I'm just looking at this alone without going into details. Between Chinese media and communications and chemical and pharmaceutical technology, which would, on first glance, will give you more options?
More of the latter lah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
More of the latter. Why? I tell you why. Because Chinese media and communications is a specialized skill. Do you agree? Do you agree? So when you take a look at that, how many companies are specialized in Chinese media and communications? Not a lot. Not a lot. You can go into teaching, of course. You can go into teaching, of course. But besides teaching, media companies, the big media companies, SPH and so forth. So the pool becomes very limited. Whereas chemical and pharmaceutical technology you find many of these companies around the world, in Singapore as well. So just by looking at this alone, definitely without any details, chemical and pharmaceutical technology gives you more opportunities. Okay, fine. And this is my frank opinion. This is my frank opinion. Frank opinion on me. If I'm really good in Chinese, I can still come back to this if I want next time, but the reverse is not true. So let's say I take a Chinese media and communications degree. Now the problem is this. Now your university courses are now going to be really limited. Do you agree? It's now limited right now because you chose Chinese. Notwithstanding notwithstanding the prerequisites. Whereas if you go to chemical and Chinese, you definitely got a lot more options. Then later on in life, if you're really sick of this industry, but you're good in Chinese, you can still come to this if you prove to them that you're good in Chinese, you're good at speaking, good at writing, so forth, so forth. Okay, so I'm just telling you the practical advice.
Yeah, maybe just to hop in. So I think just now there were a few questions with regards to the pathway to tertiary. So maybe I can add in a bit on the university part lah. So I think two things. One with regards to the question on the uni. For you, we are looking at UK versus US uni. Actually, there's a few angles here when you look at scholarships generally. There's one kind of scholarship which is that means you are applying with our agencies in Singapore, right? Like our public sector, our government boards, or even some of the private sector firms may also offer you scholarships that you can then use to go overseas to study. That's one type. And for that, so like what I mentioned, beyond just the academics portion, actually they look a lot like at your other non-academic considerations like your CCAs, your leadership, and how you fare in terms of interview and those kind of situational tests and all that kind of thing as well. So actually it's more holistic. And definitely I think both, like what we have mentioned before, both actually JC and Poly, you do stand that chance of getting that scholarship as long as you exemplify all these attributes lah. That's number one. Uh, Beyond that, so the thing is, this is what is provided, right? Is sometimes like what Alvin mentioned, the school themselves may also offer scholarships. So indeed, and this is the case in sometimes you see those US universities in particular, where the US universities actually may offer actually scholarships, though it's more rare. And there's also considerations like, in the US, there's this need blind versus those that are not need blind. So need blind means that they are so-called blind to your financial needs. They won't discriminate based on that. But those that are not need blind will then factor that into consideration. So there's also some of that as well. And in fact, in the last 2 years, some of you, if you have been following the news, you also see there's also added challenges, right? Because of the whole political landscape with regards to like immigration, with regards to, foreign students in like the foreign, like US universities and everything. So that also adds some complication lah. But with regards to the difference between UK and US, I can also share a bit. For UK universities, they are much more academic focused. So actually, a lot of times, if you want to go to UK, they are a lot more focused on how you did for that particular subject that you want to apply for in studying for the uni. But US is a lot more holistic. So US doesn't really, in fact, if you go into US universities not knowing what you want to do, they are actually quite okay with it. But what they want to see is, how do you differentiate yourself as a person? And how do you value add to the university environment lah? And related to that, I think there was a question on psychology. So that was something that I was really interested in as well. So I did some look into that also. I myself, I also did psychology as a major lah, and I also wanted to see what was the prospects from that. So generally, actually, Alvin is also correct in that if you look at it, generally, if you look to do something related to psychology in poly, with a view to doing that even as a bachelor's degree subsequently in uni, the career options are relatively more limited. So usually for you to have more choices arising from a psychology degree, you will have to follow that up with a master's or a PhD typically. And usually the master's that people will do is the master's in clinical psychology. And understandably, because of that also, because a lot of people cannot, get many options from bachelor's and they have to go on to the master's, it becomes very competitive. So if you look at, for example, like NUS Masters in Clinical Psychology is a super competitive course in terms of the admission rates. And to get in, you not only have to do very well for your bachelor's, you also have to have like real internship experience, work life experience and all that kind of thing as well. So there is that competitiveness aspect lah. So in short, if you want to go down that route, it is possible, but you have to be prepared to invest more time in terms of the upskilling and the training and all that too. Yeah, so that's the key part to note. The other thing, so I think there was another question with regards to is banking better or AI better? I think that's an interesting question. So just to highlight, I feel number one, there's a few considerations here. Back in my time, right? So when I was in university, you will see that actually, things have changed quite a bit. So in my time in university, you will see what were the most prestigious companies that the top students, all of them want to go into, right? Really your what we call as the bulge bracket, right? The investment banks, right? The Goldman Sachs, the Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, and all that kind of thing. That was it, right? But right now you can see that the winds have shifted, right? So a lot more focus is on like Silicon Valley, right? The Magnificent Seven, right? There's a lot more talk about all that and about AI and everything now. So I would say it's also a function of the times. And in a sense, also, they are not quite apples and apples comparison, right? Because these two, I would say, is not to say one is better than the other or worse than the other. It's really different things, actually, right? So if you're looking at banking, you have to ask yourself then, in terms of your disposition, if you are going to banking, there are these several areas that you can go into, right? So you can go into, for example, corporate banking, commercial banking, or you can go into like private wealth management, right? That means you can advise rich clients on how to manage their funds. Or you can also go into, for example, investments, right? So you can become an equity analyst. You can research the stock markets if that's what you're interested in. You can even be involved in a hedge fund or fund management, managing funds for other people in the markets, right? So there are people who do that, and there are also people who do like investment banking, where they advise on like mergers and acquisitions for companies and all that kind of thing. So for all these, actually, then you can ask yourself, is that your cup of tea, right? Is finance your cup of tea? Is dealing with numbers your cup of tea? As opposed to, let's say, if you look at the AI space, AI, I think in terms of the things that you can do, I think the thing about here also is that AI is quite a different beast. Why do I say that? Is because AI on its own can be quite a specialized space, right? In terms of some of the things that you can do, be it in terms of like software engineering, be it in terms of certain niche industries. But at the same time, what you all need to all recognize is that AI itself also goes beyond the specialized. In fact, I will feel that in any industry now, in today's world, it will involve the use of AI. So it's not to say that just because you are interested in banking, then you just don't need to care about AI related knowledge, generative AI and everything. It's no longer the case now. In fact, I would say that right now we are at a tipping point whereby very soon, every single industry will have AI, and the people who have advantages in their own industries are those people who know AI plus also the key expertise within their own industries. So I think that's the part that you all need to take away, that even if you were to go into a certain course, the AI knowledge itself is a very critical info domain that will be very helpful going forward. In fact, that's also why you all will see, like for some of the poly, like Nanyang Poly, they have stated from like the new year going forward, every single one of their curriculum incorporates generative AI curriculum and learning. It's because of how pervasive, how widespread it has become, how important it is in every field actually. So in fact, I would encourage, even if it's not something that you are specializing in, there's definitely scope for you to learn that as an added exposure. And even right now, even on the internet, right? So putting aside the courses, there are a lot of free courses that you can already take. They are very substantive, very comprehensive for you to learn that actually, right? So that's the key part to highlight. Okay. I think there's another questions on the prospects of pursuing economics in uni and what poly costs compared to A-level graduates. So as mentioned, I think with regards to the finance industry, with a diploma, certainly I don't think you will stand a less competitive chance compared to JC students. I mean, I have had friends, right? So they went through the poly route. I have a friend who did accounting, right? So he did very well there. Thereafter, he went on to uni to do accounting degree, and then he went on to the Big Four, right? And from there, then he's actually doing very well in the Big Four. So I would say that there is equal opportunities that is accorded, right, to individuals. And in fact, I would say there will be a head start for some of you if you look at it. Because if you look at it for the poly route, you will actually have more exposure to the finance/commerce areas, right, in some of the work that you do. But JC, you won't really have that, right? So if you go on the JC route, it's very academic. You won't really touch really finance. In fact, the only place that would do that more is if you go to MI, Millennium Institute, where they do like a business commerce stream. But if you look at just pure JC, you won't have that. So that is also I would say a good advantage that you would have. And in terms of, let's say you're trying to do econs at uni, right? The thing to note also is that the good thing about econs at uni is because it's more generalist. Generally, going into uni and you want to do econs, there is no strong prerequisites actually. That means you don't have to say like, oh, unlike like, so for example, if you want to do medicine, you need to have taken science, right? Like you have to take chemistry and so on, but there's no hard prerequisites for econs. So because of that, actually, then it's not, as limiting, right? From where you want to go, where you are at now to where you want to go, right? But I would say, but to do well in the subject in uni, because I myself, I took economics in uni, you have to have a pretty good mathematics understanding. That means your basic mathematics knowledge in calculus, like differentiation and everything, it will be helpful. So if you have a good foundation in that, it will help you more in understanding how economics models work at the university level. Yeah, and that's something that I would say, even without JC, even at poly, there will be these mathematics modules that you have to take. In fact, again, like I would say, maths is like AI, is also something that is very important. So regardless of whatever that you're specializing in, a good understanding of math actually is helpful. Yeah, correct. So yeah, so that's the key thing to note lah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Ken, is there
Okay,
any other?
you,
Yeah.
you, you know, Weilun,
Mm,
the common question about cutoff point, because we have been sharing this many times in all of DSA, right?
mm,
Okay, so right now it's different. Your secondary school, you have six secondary schools. For your poly, you have 12. Why poly you have 12? Not poly you have 12, because you got JC as well as your poly options. And poly got many different courses. So right now the question is, first of all, you must know your score. So the question is always this, generally, these kind of points are not cast in stone, so they can move. Okay, but because it's by human nature. What do I mean by human nature? Human nature is such that we all try to choose schools, choose college courses according to the cutoff point. Do you agree? And because all of us try to act rationally, the cutoff points are more or less the same. So let me give you a simple example. Let's say you look at the course. I just give you an example. Like last time when I was teaching at the poly, let's say the cutoff point for accounting and finance. Accounting course, Okay, so the poly course was a little bit strange. It was a reversal. So business courses more difficult to get in than accountancy courses, even though accountancy course at the time times have changed, was a lot more difficult to get in at uni level. But let's not talk about this. So let me give you a simple example. So when I do counseling, when I was a poly lecturer, we are all supposed to do counseling, right? So let's say a student, the poly admission score is 11. Okay, that means your score for poly admission is 11, but the business cutoff point is 8. So let me ask you all a question. Do you think that you have a high chance of getting into a course where the cutoff point is 8 when your score is 11? So you must understand it. The scores are low. Why the scores are low? For one reason. The scores are low for usually for only two reasons. Two reasons. The first reason is the number of places are small. Okay, the number of places are few, and a lot of top students want to enter that, so the cutoff point goes. This applies to some of courses like bioengineering, biochem. It does happen. The other possible reason is that the faculty is larger, but because it's a very popular flavor of the day, like business AI, flavor of the day, a lot of people find AI sexy, so they want to join. So fine, they apply for it. Okay? And because of it, many top students apply, the cutoff point goes lower. And we humans are rational. Okay, so when I look at the cutoff point, I look 8. My score is 11. Now my question is, should you try for it? So this is my frank opinion. So I want everybody to raise their hands. Do you think you should try for it? Bearing in mind that you got 12 choices. Bearing in mind you got 12 choices, that's number one. And bearing in mind, Weilun, right? When it comes to JC and poly application, does choice order count?
Yeah, so choice order does not matter as a tiebreaker. Yeah, it does not matter as a tiebreaker, but it's so why we say that is because you all will know at primary 6, right? When y'all did the scoring posting exercise, we always talk about choice order as a tiebreaker, right? That means if two students have the same score and they're both Singapore citizens, the one that put this school higher up will have higher priority compared to another student, right? But right now, for the JAE exercise, the choice order does not serve as a tiebreaker anymore, right? So what then serves as a tiebreaker is really in terms of your citizenship status, your gross score, and then after that is computerized balloting. But it's not to say choice order doesn't matter. So the thing to clarify here is even though choice order is no longer used as a tiebreaker to beat out other students, it still matters to you because why? Because if you think of it, the way it works now is that the way the algorithm works is we kind of rank every single student. So from the very first student who did the best, right, scored the best, to the very last student. Then that very first student who did the best, he will have first dips in getting the schools, right? So I will look at him, I will see what's his first choice. Very naturally, he will get his first choice. Then after that, I go on to the second student, and so on and so forth. So when I come to the somewhere in the middle, understandably, some of these students, their first few choices will be filled out already, right? Because there will be no more places. So I have to keep going down. So that's why in this case, choice order still matters because the algorithm will first look at your first choice first. If you can get into your first choice, they will assign you that already. So that's why choice order matters in that your very first choice should be a reflection of your preference. That means your most preferred one should be at the top. Because if you don't put it at the top, you would be assigned, quite likely what will happen is you'll be assigned to something else, then you won't even go down the list
Yeah.
to the ones that you want.
What Weilun said is absolutely correct, absolutely logical. So this is how it goes. So that's why. So just now the question we had was, one cutoff point, should we apply? Correct? Absolutely. Why? Because you got 12 choices, you got more. But if you really want a course, make it as your first choice. Why? And generally, the logic is always the same. If you want a course, the most competitive course, you must put as first option. So let me tell you why you must put as first option. I'm just giving, I do not know the business AI cutoff point, but I'm just assuming. Let's assuming that the cutoff point is 8. I'm just assuming. I'm just assuming the cutoff point is 8 and I get a score of 10. For poly, I get a score of 10. Now, you are considering other courses as well. Let's say you're considering accounting and finance. Maybe I'm just saying, maybe cutoff point is 9. Okay? Accounting and finance is 9. Then let's have another media course. Maybe media course is 12. So I repeat, so you are interested in these three courses: business AI, 8, accounting and finance, 9, media design, 12. Your score is 10. So what happens? When you rank the courses, you definitely have got to put the one with the lowest cutoff point first. Why? If you don't get it, you go to your second choice. Okay, let's say you don't get because let's say I'm just giving an example. Let's say your score is 10. Business AI, maybe this year it went up or down by 1 point. But even if you went down by 1.9, you still won't get it. Okay, because other students have got 9. So you don't get the first choice. Fine. We move on to your second choice. In this case, accounting and finance, 9 points, 9, you're in. Okay? Then your third choice, media design, 12, you won't even come to that. But what happens if you reverse the order? So you see what happens now. What happens if you reverse? You really like business AI, but you think you don't have a chance. Okay, so this is how you place them. You put banking and finance first choice, media design second choice, business AI third choice. When the computer looks at it, you got 9 points, business and finance 9 points, straight away you're in. We don't even look at your second choice anymore. Are we clear about this? So this is exactly what Weilun means. We don't even look at your second choice anymore because you already made the first choice. So that is why on a logical basis, you must rank your options in a way that has the lowest cutoff point first and the lowest difficult, provided you really like the course. So this will be the general rule. So when you hear 1.18, of course, you have to try because you only have one choice. Even if 2 cutoff points, it is unlikely, but we never know. But if you ask me, can we try for it? If you have 12 choices, I think we can. This is my frank opinion. It may be unlikely, but I still will take care. But anytime when it's 3 or 4 or 5 points away, I would recommend that. I think 2 is still possible because there are flukes, but maximum will probably be 2. This is my frank opinion. But usually it's plus minus 1. This is the reality, okay? Why? Because what happens in the previous year sets a standard for what is going to happen this year. So people apply according to their grades, okay? This is also the reality. So you may not get in, but at least you try. You get in, you still have a chance. You don't put in, you got 0 chance. So I think 2, I think you can still try your luck. But anytime when it's 3, 4 points away, like let's say you got your poly score is 13, you want to try for business AI 12, 8 points, I think you're almost certainly not going to get it. Okay? Then in this case, you may want to omit this choice. But if you're 1, 2 points away, by all means, put it is. Okay, Weilun, do you agree with this line of logic?
Yeah, correct. And like what Alvin mentioned, actually, if you all look back at the data for even for the poly courses, so I'll say compared to JC one is very stable and at most plus minus 1 from year to year. Poly, there are some that can have a bit more variation, plus minus 2. And there are some very pockets, very individual courses where there's more variation. But like what Alvin mentioned, actually, it doesn't vary that much generally for most of the courses also, especially for some of the ones that are super popular, pretty stable in terms of the poly that they are from. It's actually, they don't change also. So they could be like, for example, like accountancy and finance, 12 is all the way 12. And sometimes it can trend downwards also, right? So maybe 12 become like 11. So it's quite similar. So I would say like more or less if you look at it that way. So like what Alvin mentioned, if you want to put a stretch school, it makes sense to put it right at the front because that's the one that you are really, because if you want to try, that should be at the front because that's what will be first considered, right? But and generally, how do you try? I think if you are about 1 point, 2 point, I think it's still worth a shot. But anything that's 3 points or more, I think it will be really quite a bit of a stretch also. So it will be also good for you to just take a look at the previous data on it, right? And then you can see, because there's not really a lot of variance. So something like I think 3 or more will be a bit of a stretch. So the thing is that, and the other thing to note is that so you can try, but I think definitely also worthwhile to put in, for as a fallback option, then some of the safety nets courses that their cutoff is actually higher compared to your score. so that at least you know, let's say even if you don't get into your stretch, you don't get into some of the schools that are aligned with your score, at least you still have some to fall back on, because you don't want a case whereby you don't have anything to fall back on. So I think just two principles. So I think it's worth a try, but always have safety options. And if you want to try, the stretch should be at the top, but also make sure that it's not too much of a stretch lah. So I think one or two is I think still worth a try, but three onwards, I think if you generally look at the even the poly courses themselves, they don't have that much variance typically, particularly for that more popular courses also. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Weilun. So I'm answering a couple of questions. Will there be any session for Polytechnic EA, EPAF? Yes, there is. So going forward, we're going to have a couple of things, whether it's DSA primary, DSA secondary, and so forth, which include your poly path. Yes, we're going to have. That's number one. Number two, can external courses be part of my poly portfolio? Okay, you can always create. This is a question I'm answering. So Ria asked, can external courses be part of my poly? So the general answer, yes, for your resume, for your things, yes. But whether it is recognized as a credit to your poly coursework, that's a different story. That one you got to check with the poly specifically. Am I clear? But if let's say you take a course on your own, it's something we should do. So let me give you an example. So let's say you're studying a communication degree, but you attended but you want to enhance your speaking skills. You attended a certification course in mastery of critical communication skills and public speaking, or you take the Lambda exam, you take the Trinity College exam. By all means, put it inside your resume. Does it help you? Yes, it helps you. But whether it's recognized by the poly or not, it really doesn't matter. Okay. But so I'm looking at two aspects. Do external courses be part of your poly portfolio? Absolutely. Factor number one. Factor number two, will it be included in the poly credit system? May or may not be. So you got to check. But whatever it is, it's always good to have external portfolio. So let me give you an example. If you take the Trinity Communication Skills exam, it is not in your poly portfolio, but let me tell you, many DSAs look at it. And more importantly, if you apply to any UK universities, you get credit points, if you get distinction, grade 8 is 30 bonus points. It's quite a lot. Grade 6, 7, 8 Trinity exams, if you go to any UK university, which includes England, Scotland, Ireland, right? Wales, except Northern Ireland, right? Because they're all in the UK group. Your Trinity College, your Trinity Public Speaking exam counts as a university bonus point. And it is cumulative. So you take grade 6, 7, 8, you accumulate all these bonus points. External courses, external certifications may not be recognized by the poly, but absolutely recognized by the university. So this is how you should look at things. Clear? Clear? Okay. So external courses, by all means, build your external portfolio. How is hospitality and tourism management? Anything depends on your interests. Okay, so but you must also bear in mind that anytime you choose hospitality and tourism, you will try to get a job in the industry. So what is it? It can involve many. So a number of my students, of people I know in the past, when they do this diploma, most of them are either at hotels or restaurants. I'm telling you the reality, because restaurant, so quite a number of them are at Resort World Sentosa. Resort World Sentosa is hospitality tourism, so they do a lot of things, okay? And they work on shifts. So it really depends on your interest. You must have a keen interest in this. You must keen interest in working with people, being at the forefront, engaging them. Okay, so this will generally, how is it? It really depends on your personal interest. Some people like it because you need to interact, you need to speak to a lot of people, you need to try to get them to see whether they enjoy their stay at fundamental level first, because definitely you won't be going to management right. But anytime you want to grow in this, you need to spend initial years always at the ground first. Okay, so it really depends on interest. But if you're the quiet type, don't like to interact with people, may not be the best course for you. Okay? Ken, is marketing considered if we miss out any questions, let me know. Is marketing considered a good course to take in poly, and what kind of qualities do we need? Marketing, I mean, this is my frank opinion, okay? Marketing is something which every company needs, But whether you get a job or not is a very different story, because marketing is just, I would say, to a certain extent, something which you can easily learn on your own. Why I say this, any marketing course, you can just open the internet, many courses available. And some of it is common sense. Marketing is effectively this, right? Can you do something which attracts the customer? That's the long and short of it. And sometimes it is common sense, right? I don't need to know the theory, but I know. I'm just giving you an example. You know, there are some YouTube, TikTok stars. These people, some social media stars, only primary six. Okay, only primary six education. Cannot speak English well, but it doesn't matter. I can go on TikTok live. I can tell them I'm going to promote a product, and they do it in a way very interactive. I don't need only PSLE, but can speak Hokkien, can engage the crowd. People like them, then they get hired by the big companies. This is also the reality. Ultimately, marketing is an emotional field. Emotional field, okay? What the people, so the most important thing is the emotional engagement, okay? Once people feel emotionally engaged to you, the product is secondary. But of course, this is all from experience lah. Is it a good course to take? I think it's a very general course to take, and I'm also very frank with you. Even if you do it at university, it is tough to find a job because it's very competitive. Okay, I'm just being very frank with you lah. I'm just being very frank. It's a good skill to have, but do you need to take a marketing course in order to have marketing class? No, because all these things are freely available internet. You can just read it in your own time. So if I were you, I would do something which would probably be a little bit more less general. Do you understand? Anytime if it becomes very general, a very general skill, the danger is always like everybody can do. And once everybody can do, now you're fighting against thousands of people applying for that one single job. And this can be quite tough. Okay, I'm just being very frank with you. Ken? Okay. Any other questions which we missed out? In poly, how often do we have assessment tests and advantages? Yes, you always have. So everything, the first thing you do, whether you go to JC, whether you go to poly, is that make sure you know how you're tested. They always have a rubric, they always have a schedule. Then you look at it. Things which you need to pass, don't need to spend too much time. Just do the bare minimum, pass, good enough, submit, you pass, you won't fail as long as you submit. Things with a percentage, make sure you spend more time on it. So how often do we have assessment and tests? You have it every now and then, but it's not every week lah. For sure, it's not every week. Your semester lasts 6 months. Okay, so generally at periodic times, strategic times, a couple of weeks you have one quiz, one assignment, depending on the flavor. So definitely you have. Okay, fine. So I answered that already. Yeah. I'm looking at the questions right now. I think there are no other questions. Weilun, are there any questions which we have not answered?
Yeah, so I think there's one with regards to if I want to enter medical school in local unis, should I go on the A-level route or the biomedical science route in poly? Yeah. So I think with regards to that, if you just look at the statistics, in terms of the cohort of people going into medical school in Singapore, a large bulk it still comes more from the JC. So
This is
the
a
number
fact.
of poly intake is still smaller. So that's one data point for consideration. But I would say that there's also a number of pros and cons. So how do you think about it in terms of the pros and cons? Is that the JC route itself actually again is very steep in academics. In fact, you won't really learn anything that is very directly specific to the industry. So what you will do at JC is like, chem, physics, math, right? It's very academic. But if you go on the poly route, the advantage that it gives to you, right? So while overall as a statistics, poly students less go in, but for those who do go in, what we do see, because I also have a lot of friends who are in the medical field, those people actually have a stronger head start in terms of their hand skills. So if you look at it, actually a lot of times you don't really know whether you're good at all the hands-on stuff, right, when it comes to medicine. And in fact, a lot of them they don't even know it when they first started medicine. But after they go on into like, being a house officer, then they realize, oh, it's a problem for them, right? The hand skills, how they manage things and everything. But poly actually, in terms of these courses, actually provides that training, be it in terms of the hand skills and be it in terms of these really industry specific type applications that JC would have a bit less of. So I think these are the considerations that you can take into account lah. One more thing I wanted to add just now with regards to the tiebreaker. So I did mention that the choice order, does not factor in the tiebreaker. There is, however, one exception, which is also linked to this, with that if you look at what MOE has also shared publicly for specifically diploma in nursing, right? So diploma in nursing in particularly Nanyang Poly and Ngee Poly, they actually specify explicitly that interest is a consideration. So for this particular course that I mentioned, diploma in nursing at Nanyang and Ngee if you were to put it at the top, you will be given priority. That means for that particular course in particular, there is priority preference given in terms of a choice order against another student. Okay, so that's just one thing I wanted to clarify.
This is a very important point, and I tell you the practical realities as well, okay? The reality is that nursing is not an easy job. You must really be passionate about it. But just because you're a guy doesn't mean that you can't become a nurse. So the reality is that nursing is you must really be interested in healthcare. And the reality is Singapore is also short of it. Okay, short of it, which is why we have many foreign nurses from Philippines, especially for Philippines and China. There are quite a number. If you go to every hospital, you see a number of these, and from India as well. So the reality is that they want as many nurses as possible. So that is why there will always be exceptions according to the government inclinations. Now, coming back to the question about medical, okay. So I'm just telling you. So I'm going to add on to what Weilun said, which is absolutely correct. What Weilun said is absolutely true. I just want to add in a couple of more things. I'm very frank with you. If you want to have any chance of getting into medicine, you need to have a near perfect GPA. Okay? Near perfect GPA, the given range is 3.8 to 4, but let me tell you, you want to be competitive, you need at least a 3.9 and above to have any chance. That's number one. First factor, academic. Second factor, relevant diploma. What do you mean by relevant diploma? Your diploma in health sciences, right? Diploma in biomedical science, that would be relevant. So it must be something relevant. Something which is not relevant, you can't get in. Number three, strong portfolio. So strong portfolio, this is where it comes in. Your internship in hospital, healthcare, your volunteer work, all these things will come into play. Okay. The most number of medical students from Poly was happened, if I'm not mistaken, the year before COVID. I can't remember, but I remember that newspaper article. 6 Poly students, record year, first time ever, 6 Poly students entered NUS medicine. And not all of them have good grades. There were some with 3.7 plus. Okay, I'm trying, because I remember this very clearly. You can just Google, okay, 6 Poly students, record, it was headline news in the Straits Times. Okay, so around 6-7 years, it was record, and they profiled all the 6 students. So what they had was, for those which didn't get 3.9 or 4.0, they had super good portfolio. Okay, means portfolio of internships, healthcare related internships, shadowing, community related service and volunteering in healthcare settings. Okay, leadership roles and other achievements. Fine. So this is the idea. So generally, it's always like that. Whether it's medicine or not, the more competitive course it is, medicine is not the only competitive course right now. There are many competitive courses in Singapore. Okay, Singapore, everything is tough, okay, the reality. But medicine is obviously more competitive, but it's not as competitive right now compared to last time because there are many options. There are many options. And I'll give you the other possibility. Even Singapore has this scheme right now. Okay, Singapore has this scheme right now that in the past they used to be very selective, but because of lack of resources and because of the attrition, this is also the reality. Even if you don't get Singapore and you get a place in overseas universities, let's say you go to a UK university, the Singapore government can actually pay for you, you know. You do well in year 1, you apply for under the Singapore government, they give you that, okay, we pay for year 2 and year 3. Once you finish, you come back to work in Singapore. This is true, and these are things which didn't happen during my time, but it's happening now. Okay, these are things which also didn't happen in Weilun's time, but it is happening now. Okay, so last time Singapore, but why? Because of attrition, because of changing circumstances, because of aging population, they need more doctors, but at the same time, they are not increasing. They have really increased the number of medical places. Also, your new university, NTU, giving postgrad students the ability, so, okay, NTU is an option right now. So maybe NTU is a postgrad. So it's like American system. So what it means is that if I do a bachelor in accountancy, but I want a career change, I don't like accountancy, I want to do medicine, you can do it at NTU right now, but it's a postgrad. That means you got to have a basic degree first. And your basic degree doesn't need to be medicine related. It can be anything. It can be accounting, it can be engineering, it can be media. As long as you qualify, you meet the requirements, you beat the competition, you're in as well. Okay, clear? So there are now different pathway as well. So I hope this clarifies. So is it possible for poly students to get in? Yes, but definitely not so easy compared to the JC students. But even JC students, the places are limited. So they also will need to compete, and sometimes you need a matter of luck. So I hope this answers the questions clearly. Okay, Ken? In addition to what Weilun said. Okay, poly class timings. Okay, poly class timings, there are a few ways of doing it. This is probably the last question. Two more questions. Poly class timings. Poly is just like the beauty about poly is that you can choose your timetable. Am I clear? So if you get all the slots according to courses, you can actually literally can have a 4-day week. Especially if you cram every day. So it depends. So it depends on the module you choose, depends on the timetable available. And this is first come, first serve. So once you enroll in the poly already, they'll tell you, okay, on this day, timetable is going to go and choose your classes. First come, first serve. So tip for you, don't wait until one day later go and choose your slots because the popular slots may all be taken up. Popular slots also depends on who the teacher is. So if you know that the teacher is very good, everybody also wants that teacher. Do you agree? So that's why you must do a little bit of investigation. So poly timing is different from your JC or secondary timing where it's fixed. Poly timing, you choose yourself. Then you create your own timetable based on the courses and based on the modules you choose. Okay, number one. Is aerospace course competitive? Easiest way to look at it is you look at the cutoff point. So the cutoff point will tell you exactly whether it's competitive or not. Okay, I do not know the cutoff point for aerospace, but just by letting me know, I would tell you whether it's competitive or not. Very simple. The lower the cutoff point, the more competitive it is. Full stop. Okay? Okay? But just roughly thinking on my own, is aerospace. Aerospace is a specialized industry. It's a specialized industry. And because of that, there are not a lot of places as well. So I would imagine, I do not know for sure, but I would imagine that it's definitely quite a competitive course. This is what is in my mind. I may not be right. I'm just thinking just like that. Okay. Cool. Okay. Thank you, Sweti. Sweti, our Marcoms manager, she actually shared the link, and I want to share with everybody. Thank you, Sweti, for sharing this link. So it was this Mothership article on SP graduate going to medical school, second try. Okay, so let me try to pull this out. I gave you the link. I'm trying to open the link, but okay, but you can read. I think you can read about it. Second try. Weilun, now do you see my screen?
Yeah, but I still see the PDF.
You still see the PDF? Okay, okay. Never mind. But your see. Let me stop share. Okay, let me stop share. Let me open up this link. And thank you, Steady, for sharing, which I shared with okay, Mothership. So let's go through this. Let's go through this. Okay, so that at least all of us can see together at the same time. Now I share. Weilun, now do you see my screen? No,
Not yet.
see.
Yeah.
Okay, let's screen. Okay. Look, got it. SP grad refuses to take no for an answer, gets to the NS medical. So this is something which is interesting. All right, never give up. In 2012, a 16-year-old scored a very respectable 6 points. Good score. Better than expected. Good grades to enroll in Singapore Poly Medical. Fast forward 23, a third-year student at NUS. While most experienced graduates, these professors do not think that, yeah, this is true. This is why I said, just because you go to the poly, don't say that you're inferior. Very, very important. So enrolling an overseas internship spice income doctor. So for also biomedical, how do you eventually settle? You can read through it. I'm just reading in general. Research and Immunology Department, drawing strength from seniors in year 2. Yeah, so let's go straight to this. The road to medical school was not an easy one. He first applied to NUS Medicine in 2015. The discovered application is particularly grueling, definitely. Okay, because highly competitive. 2 rounds for selection. First round based on applicants' academic results. But this was in 2015. I repeat, now it has changed. Now it has changed. Okay. Now it's even more grueling. Now it's at least 3 rounds. I just let you know first. Okay. Which involves CCA, CIP, job shadowing experience. This is narrowed down group from approximately 800 to 1,000 people. You see, again, very competitive. Then from this 8 round, interview with 2 components: situation, judgment test, written test, focus skills, where students. Now you see his GPA 3.92, despite being a member of Coordinator, Vice President, and an avid community volunteer, was rejected. Why? That means there were other students who were more competitive. Okay. So however, but I can just read about it. Okay. So he applied to it again. First choice, he accepted the offer NUS. 2 years after he was initially resettled, he again to. So the beauty about poly is that you can always try again. This is always true also. This is always true also, because poly is considered the pre-tertiary. You can always try again, and especially for guys, especially when you got the army, and you can make use of it and try again. Okay, so yeah, so everybody needs to know this. This is just one example. As I mentioned, a couple of years ago, 6 poly grads got in from a variety of different profiles. There were some with perfect GPAs. There were some with not so good GPAs but fantastic portfolio. Okay, in healthcare. So these are all the things which you want to consider. Okay, cool. So I hope that this session has been beneficial, and thank you, Weilun and Sweetie, for leading it. I give you all my phone number. Anytime you're not too sure, please WhatsApp me. Okay, I'll try my best to answer your questions. Like yesterday, I was on the line with 2 sets of parents up to past 12. Alvin 92363662. Yes. So please let me know if there's anything. Then going forward, also please do join our JC and Poly group. It doesn't matter, because some generic things which are applicable to Poly students as well. But because I was a Poly lecturer, and because right now Poly students to come and see me, and the Poly deans to bring the students for me to assessment. Let me give you an example. The dean of the entrepreneurship club for NUS Poly, and Ngee Poly is in charge of all the polys, even the local universities entrepreneurship club. Okay, because supposed to be active. They bring the students for me to assess, and I tell them whether the idea is workable or not. Okay, why? Very simple. Because I have been through the process. I've been there and done that. I'm not your normal teacher, just academic. I had done all this before. So that's why they bring them to me and my lecturer. Then I said, now you present. So I give them a frank opinion. For me, it's a great idea. For me, I think this idea doesn't work because there are thousands of these people in the market and you didn't do your market research. So I'm very frank with you. So I'm pretty familiar with the general industry thing. So if you're not too sure, just WhatsApp me, then I'll see what I can do. Can? Any other questions? Okay. If not, thank you for joining us, and thank you for asking all these questions, very relevant. And I hope that this session has been instructive for you. And thank you, Weilun, as usual, for leading it again.
Yeah, thanks, Alvin, and thanks everybody for joining. Yeah, so all the best for the posting exercise, and yeah, any questions, just feel free to reach out to us. So our channels are still open, and contact number as well. Okay, yeah. So thanks very much, everybody, and have a good weekend. Okay, yeah, thanks.
Thank you.